After playing this game for 6, almost 7 years now at this point, and spending most of those 6, 7 years playing battleships, then going to heavy cruisers, then light cruisers, I've now finally worked my way around to actual destroyers. And I say actual destroyers because I have been playing the run and gun destroyers like the Cabros, the Kleber, the Delny for some time now, but those are more of small light cruisers than actual destroyers. So I decided a few weeks ago to finally, put my foot down and grind out a proper destroyer line. Now in the past I started with the German destroyers, but was having a little bit of difficulty finding out exactly how to make them work. So then I decided, you know what? I should probably start at the line that is, well, kind of the beginner destroyer line, and that is the gearing line. I say that because the American tech tree, for the most part, is where most players will find themselves starting out for a couple of reasons, especially on the North American server. One, of course, players from the United States want to play their home nation, and two, the American tech tree is generally quite a good beginner's tech tree because the ships there tend to be, jack of all trades, masters of none, but still really, really good ships. That's why I recommend anybody who's starting out in battleships to start with the American main battleship line, the Montana line. And that's very much true with the cruisers. They teach you how to angle, how to, not get blapped, and the destroyers as well, from what I've heard. And I can confirm after spending a few weeks going up the American destroyer line, yes, that is very much true. And I can finally say I have finally researched the Fletcher. After having every single other Fletcher in the game, I have finally acquired the actual Fletcher at this point. But anyway, yes, I finally grinded out the American destroyer line. I'm at the gearing, and it's a pleasant little ship, I must say. Now, another big reason why I went up the gearing line is because of the actual destroyers that I've played, ships like the small end. I tend to play them as cap contesting destroyers, because besides run and gun, I do enjoy playing destroyers in a cap contesting manner, because it's more action-packed than your torpedo boats that go around to the flanks and throw walls of torpedoes out at the enemy team. I'm not saying that's a bad gameplay style, just that it seems a little boring to me. But cap contesting, there's more action, the actions are more close-ranged, and it's a lot more impactful on the game, obviously, when you are taking these caps. And that's another thing that I like about destroyer gameplay, is that it seems to be more impactful than most other classes, because taking the caps are a pretty big part to winning the match, and you gotta, well, do that in order to win. And the gearing is a pretty solid ship for that, because it can do a little bit of everything. The torpedoes on it are pretty solid. In the match watching right now, I was trying out the 10-kilometer torpedoes instead of the 16-kilometer torpedoes, because the 10-kilometer torpedoes, they have a bit more alpha than the 16-kilometer torpedoes. But obviously with the 16-kilometer torpedoes, you have to worry a lot less about things like radar and hydro spotting you, because 10 kilometers, you kind of want to be 8-ish kilometers away. That way the torpedoes have that little bit of extra range in case the target ship turns out, and that gets you very close to a lot of hydroacoustic search ranges, and you're definitely in pretty much everyone's radar range when you're that close to them. But again, you get a little bit more alpha out of the torpedoes, so it's kind of high risk, high reward. But the 16-kilometer torpedoes, I've been having a little bit better success with them, so it's probably what I'm going to be running with from now on. And of course you have the guns. You get 6 of the 127mm guns, 2 turrets in the front, 1 turret in the back. With the build that I have right now, I have a 2.5 second reload time on those guns, and that's a pretty potent mix. Most other destroyers that you'll run across in the cap, save for, of course, something like a Groningen, a Smallland, or a Harugamo, you're going to give them a pretty good run for their money with the guns of the gearing. And out on top of that, too, you have the American long duration smokescreen that once you get it dispersed, it's going to be there for quite some time, so you can comfortably sit in there and farm stuff down that's trying to get into the cap, or deal with other DDs that maybe they've been they've slipped up, they've been spotted. You can docket them down comfortably from inside of your smoke screen, or two, you can just gun them in the open water as hopefully you get backup from your team. Which the gearing is definitely a destroyer that needs good team play behind it, because it kind of rewards that. Obviously, you can use the long duration smoke to smoke up your cruisers and such. And when you're spotting for an enemy team, sorry, for your team, and your team's supporting you, and you're finishing off those destroyers and such, it's really good for that. And of course, too, it's got a really good concealment, 5.9 kilometer concealment with the module and the commander skill, which means for most cases it can dictate the terms of its own engagement. And then if you're really, really, really in love with your gearing, you can get the legendary mod, which brings that down even more, which I believe gives it the stealthiest rating at tier 10. But of course, it's not a full gunboat, so there's still a decent amount of destroyers that can outgun it, and it's not a full torpedo boat, so there are destroyers out there with better torpedoes than it, but it's a nice hybrid mix between the two, and you still get that American smokescreen for when you do need to, smoke up and get farming and then, disengage. The only issue is that, of course, because it is a long duration smoke screen, you do have a pretty long cooldown time afterwards for that smoke. So it's not quite as good as like the British destroyer smoke screen, where you can kind of just pop it to break engagement and run away. There's another destroyer line I'm working on going up right now, and that's a pretty nice feature of it. Another thing too is that gearing's old. Gearing is real old. She's tied with the Shimakaze for being the oldest tier 10 destroyer in the game. So of course that means she has been power crept by quite a bit. When these two destroyers were out, the Shimakaze and the Gearing, destroyers didn't really have heals. But now, there's several destroyers at top tier, and tech line destroyers, that have heals, or more HP, or, better armament, or better armor. So, yeah, while back in the day she was probably one of the best destroyers in the game for, doing cap contesting and all-around destroyer things, she definitely doesn't have that title anymore. Because just like the Daring, the British destroyer line I was just mentioning, Daring gets a heal. That's a wonderful tool to have when you're cap contesting. And the Daring is probably better overall for a single player, not really playing with his team. But the Gearing's better for team play, for what that's worth in today's World of Warships. But when you do get those teammates that do back you up and do support you, the Gearing's a pretty fearsome combination to have with a team or in a division that's working together. Of course, you've all seen the funny things that can happen when you have someone with an American smokescreen, and then you have them either in a division or communicating with someone that's in like a cruiser or a secondary battleship or even a Graf Zeppelin, and the goofiness that can come out of that. So it still can do that, but yeah, it's definitely not like top dog anymore, but she's still really, really solid overall. The game you're watching in the background is pretty par for the course for my experience with the Gearing. I go to the caps, take them, try to defend them, throw some torpedoes at ships that are, within torpedo range, try to survive until as late in the match as I possibly can. That way, you still got a DD left alive on your team at the end, so you can go, sneak and get those caps, and that's really, really what helps win those games late stage. And, doing about 60, 70,000 damage a game, getting those cap ribbons and such, I'm usually finding myself in the top 5 position on the team. You might be seeing the damage at the end of this match and saying, Sealor, that's not a lot of damage at tier 10. Well, you see, destroyers aren't really all about damage. They have a lot on their plate to do besides just get damage. You need a spot for your team, which I really didn't do a whole lot of spotting this game. You need a caps, run torpedo interference for your team, and also in ships like the Gearing that have kind of decent AA, you can help your ships out with some AA support when it's, appropriate. Not saying, turn your AA on if you're at the last 10% of your HP, but, if a ship is a ship, if a CV is flying overhead and you got two or three ships together, go ahead and add your AA to their barrage of AA fire, because you might be that little tick that pushes the AA damage over to really shred those planes. You never know. But overall, I really like the Gearing line. If you're looking for a first destroyer line to go up, definitely go for it. It's still very much workable and usable, and again, does quite well in today's World of Warships. If I'm getting in the top 5 of my team playing the Gearing, you most certainly can. Trust me. Again, I'm not that fantastic of a destroyer player. The only tips I could really give you is that, make sure you go straight into the cap. That way you have a way to get out of the cap. Learn the radar ranges of, just about every single... Well, the radar ranges can boil down to this. If it's American, 10 kilometers. Soviet, 12 kilometers. If it's the Pan Euro DDs, 10 kilometers or 9 kilometers, something like that. Smallland, well, you don't really watch out for Smallland too much anymore. They don't really show up was it Smallland and the Yang also have radars. I believe those are also like 9-ish kilometers. So if it has radar, stay 10 kilometers away from it. Unless it's Soviet, stay 12 kilometers away from it. There you go. Congratulations. You have a pretty solid grasp of radar ranges now. But yeah, no, go for the caps. Take the caps. Defend them. Throw torpedoes at the enemy team. You don't always have to shoot at the enemy destroyers when they pop up. If they have more team support than you, keep your guns quiet and just disengage. Surviving past the 5-minute mark is a pretty high priority for you as a destroyer player, because again, when you're left alive at the end of the match and you can go be sneaky and go take the caps from the enemy team, that is when you are at your most valuable. So guys, that's just my experience with the gearing and grinding up my first destroyer tech line to tier 10. That isn't, again, the Khabarovsk or the Kleber or the Downey. So there's that. Just want to share my experience with you guys on that. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful, what day is? A wonderful Thursday. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, all that jazz. We're getting close to 60,000 subscribers, and when we get there, we will be doing a giveaway, so make sure you stick around for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.